The Pleiadian Mission, A Time of Awareness, by Randolph Winters. Part 13. The Death of Semyase. At the center, there is a hallway off the kitchen that leads to a large bathroom shower for those who are working on the farm. On the wall is a color drawing of Semyase walking away from her ship towards Billy. It is not a real picture, it's just a beautiful lifelike representation created by the artist Jim Nickel. I stopped to look at it every day and let my mind ruminate a little on what it would have been like to have been there. To Billy, it's a very important picture, for it reminds him of the lady from the Pleiades who had such an impact on his life. He had spent almost 2 years of his life meeting with her and working out the problems of getting the Pleiadian message to the public. I had heard several rumors that she had died or was killed as her ship flew into the sun or something. Something had happened that caused the Pleiadians to end the contacts, and I was curious to know if Billy felt like talking about it. When I brought it up, he told me the whole sad story of how one small accident changed the course of events of the Pleiadian mission. The story of Semyase. Billy said that his contacts with Semyase had started in January of 1975, and that they had continued almost weekly for about 2 years. Most of these meetings with the off-world visitor had been inside of her beam ship hovering somewhere in the Swiss mountains. On their 94th contact, however, she had come to Billy's home for a meeting that would have significant impact on future events for both of them. It was December 15th, 1977, a day called Balancing Dog on the Divine Mayan Calendar. Keep that in mind, Balancing Dog. It was on a cold, snowy night, and Billy was entertaining Semyase in the meditation room, located in a specially created building about 30 meters away from the main farmhouse. The family and resident Figu members were all gathered in the kitchen of the main house, discussing how exciting it was that Semyase was so close by. Perhaps they might be even lucky enough to see her leaving, or better yet, maybe there would be a chance to meet her. After all, she had allowed most of them to see her ship on one occasion or another, so the idea of meeting her at last didn't seem too far-fetched. Hanging on the wall was their schedule for meditation, which listed the names of all the members, but no one would be using the meditation room that night. Jacobus was sitting quietly, keeping his thoughts to himself. Billy had told all of them that Semyase was coming tonight and to stay clear of the meditation room so as not to make her uncomfortable. She had extremely acute senses, and she would probably be able to detect anyone nosing around the little building. Her beam ship was hovering somewhere directly above the center, shielded from view by the energy screens. Jacobus couldn't help wondering what she really looked like in person. Billy had, of course, described her to everyone. He had even taken a picture of her once, but was forced to promise Semyase that he would not show it to anyone. Jacobus was just thinking to himself, what's the big deal? What harm could it cause just to take a peek through the window and have a look at her? He wasn't thinking of barging in or anything, he just wanted to see the mysterious lady from the Pleiades with his own 2 eyes. The meditation room was very comfortable, as you might imagine from its name. It was a very important place on the farm because it was the center for all the Figu members to meet in. It had become a monument to the rising consciousness of this little group as they studied the lessons given to them by Semyase. Mostly all of them had participated in the building of the room and could imagine just where she would be sitting, right next to the little space heater which warmed the bone-chilling cold Swiss air. It was a real honor that tonight the meditation room was being visited by the very person who had inspired it, and all of them gathering and creating the Figu group. Her being there somehow gave them all a feeling of approval and acceptance. Inside of the meditation room, Billy and Semyase were very comfortably seated. Billy was listening intently. Semyase had met him here on some matter of importance that couldn't wait. She was just about to tell Billy the purpose of her visit when suddenly she stopped, held very still, and looked around as if something was wrong. She thought she heard someone knock at the door, and she asked Billy if he heard anything. Billy cocked his ear and tried to listen for what she had heard, but could detect nothing. He remarked that she must have been mistaken, but Semyase said she was sure someone was at the door, and she got up to leave. As she stood up and moved away from her chair, she accidentally caught her foot on the table leg and tripped over the small space heater sitting on the floor. Billy quickly turned around in time to see her fall and hit her head against the wall just at the exact moment her hand was pressing the small apparatus around her waist that caused her to dematerialize and return to her ship. Billy was very disturbed by this, and being left alone in the room, he moved to the door to see if someone was actually there. Semyase had seemed so sure of herself, but Billy had heard nothing. And there was Jacobus, hiding just outside the door in hopes of catching a glimpse of the Star Lady. Billy was understandably very upset with Jacobus because he had embarrassed himself and ruined the meeting. Jacobus said he was sorry, he only wanted to take a look, he didn't mean any harm. He had hoped no one would detect him and he could just steal a glance and be gone. But instead, it was Semyase that was gone. It wasn't until 2 days later that Billy was visited by a worried-looking Quetzal, the base commander for the underground complex in Switzerland. His pale, lime-white expression caused Billy to inquire about his health. But it wasn't his health that was on his mind. He asked Billy to explain what had happened on the evening of the 15th, when Semyase had been present in the meditation room. The manner of his speech and his attitude gave Billy a shock. Something was wrong, he was sure of it. For 2 days the whole affair had bothered him, of course. He was concerned about Jacobus messing things up, and then there was the nagging feeling that something might be wrong with Semyase. He had seen her hit her head on the wall, but then she dematerialized and returned to her ship. Billy did the best he could to recount the evening to Quetzal. He told him how Jacobus had hidden outside the door, hoping to see Semyase, and that she had become alarmed and left the room. As he was explaining how he had seen her hit her head against the wall, a sudden wave of anxiety came over him. Because now he knew why Quetzal had such a sick look on his face. Semyase must have been hurt much worse than he had thought. This would explain why he hadn't heard from her 2 days after leaving so quickly. She had come to talk about something important. It only made sense that she would have contacted him soon afterward. Additionally, Quetzal had been waiting for Semyase to return to the base 2 nights ago, for he knew she was having a meeting with Billy in the meditation room. He was the base commander and watched over Semyase like she was his own child. When she didn't come back or even send a message, he had gone looking for her, only to discover her lying in her ship, which was still hovering undetected above the farm. She had broken her arm and a heavy fracture at the base of her skull. She was in a coma and close to death. Quetzal immediately transported her body into his ship and took off for their home planet of Era for medical attention. She had been lying in her ship for a few hours with serious brain damage, and the trip to the Pleiades was still a 7-hour journey. Upon arriving at Era, Semyase was taken directly to their scientists, doctors, who, unfortunately, could not treat her. There was too much damage to the brain, and she had been without medical help for about 12 hours at that time. They had done their best to take out the damaged brain tissue, but were powerless to do any more. Once her situation had at least been stabilized, Semyase was frozen. Her father, Ptah, had made a desperate call to their friend, Asket, who was the representative for a highly evolved race of being called the Timmers, who were from a neighboring universe the Pleiadians referred to as the Dal universe. Technologically, they were far more advanced than the Pleiadians and might have a way of saving her that was beyond the science of Era. It was soon discovered that Asket and her people could do nothing either, but they encouraged everyone to not give up. They had an idea that might work to save Semyase's life. They knew a race of people called the Sonas, who had an understanding of life far beyond the Asket people. If they could somehow get in touch with them, perhaps they could come to Semyase's aid. Asket was successful, and within a few moments, several beings called Sonas suddenly appeared in the medical room on Era, where Semyase's body lay. They had not traveled by ship, but just appeared, as if they had projected themselves across the far reaches of a universe just by the sheer power of their own minds. Their medical methods were unusual, to say the least, for they offered no explanations and set to work immediately, needing no help from the scientists, doctors of Era. After making sure the dead parts of Semyase's brain had been removed, they took the frozen brain amino acids from her and inserted it into some kind of artificially produced plasma proton that they had brought with them. This was then put inside her skull, which they sealed. Within minutes, Semyase returned to consciousness with no memory of the last 42 hours or of what had happened to her. She simply opened her eyes and brought a sigh of relief to everyone in the room, and the life force raced through her body and let everyone know that she was going to be all right. Semyase was back from the dead, and the men from Sonas disappeared as quietly as they had come, returning to their home world somewhere off in another universe without so much as speaking a word. It was a very long week for Billy before he once again heard from Quetzal. Fearing Semyase was dead, he waited patiently at the location that he had been led to by the telepathic impulses from Quetzal and watched for the familiar silver disk that would soon dash out of the sky. He noticed the birds begin to rustle in the trees and take flight, and within a few moments his old friend from the Pleiades had arrived, sort of like a family reunion. Quetzal quickly reassured Billy that Semyase was well. He apologized for taking a whole week to make it back to Earth, but he had been delayed from many things that he had to do in consequence of Semyase's accident. One of these was finding a replacement for Semyase at the base in Switzerland. This would be a man named Isados, who would be there for about 6 or 7 months helping out. He was completely unfamiliar with Earth and with the work that Semyase had been doing with Billy, So it had been decided that Billy would not have any contact with Isados, and that he, Quetzal, and the two ladies named Menara and Pleia would continue on with the task of instructing Billy until such time as Semyase might again be ready to take up her duties. This change would cause some problems for Billy, for he had been working with Semyase on several problems concerning certain members of the Figu group. This would now come to a halt because Quetzal had no knowledge of these things. Billy was even more let down to find out that when Semyase did return, she would probably not be able to resume all of her duties, for part of her recovery was to take it easy and not challenge her brain too much. She would need some time for the implanted plasma to heal into and become a new part of her brain, and she was to rest and relax as much as possible. It had been decided that she would not engage in any work that would be too challenging mentally. Even though the healers, the Soneans, were very advanced, the transformation of the artificial protoplasm would take 3 to 4 years before it would become a fully natural part of her brain. The brain, of course, is the central steering mechanism of all humans in the universe, and because of this, all brains need special energy supply. This is the cosmic electrical energy of life that nourishes and feeds the brain material as well as the soul. It should be made clear that this life force provides nourishment, but no impulses for healing or regeneration. Because of this, if a brain becomes damaged or sick or hurt, it is not capable of regenerating or healing itself. This is universal for all humans. Semyase's brain now contained the artificial plasma put there by the Soneans, which restored the use of her brain and allowed the life force to flow once again through her. Part of the programming of this artificial plasma was to heal the brain by transforming the plasma into real brain matter that would be accepted by the cosmic electrical life force, essentially becoming exactly the same as her prior brain within 3 to 4 years. Until this tragic event, the Pleiadians had no knowledge of the existence of the Soneans. So little was known except these few details which they had learned in the past few days. The Soneans are from the Dal universe, which is adjacent to our universe. Their lifespan is around 2,300 years. They grow to be about 6 feet tall and have skulls approximately 50% greater in size than our own. The name Sonas comes from some language which was completely unknown because they are telepathic, and their spiritual development is at least 4,000 years in advance of the Pleiadians. Their knowledge of time and space was quite impressive too, for they were able to project themselves through the universe without the need for flight machines, utilizing only the force of their minds. That impressed Quetzal, for it was far beyond anything the Pleiadians were capable of and hadn't even really imagined. Anyway, the prognosis for Semyase looked very good. She was told to stay home for a few months and rest, and not engage in any new mental challenges. Her brain would need time to heal, and it would not be good for her to endure any undue stress or anxiety for a while. Consequently, Quetzal informed Billy, she would not be able to continue her contacts with Billy on Earth. This was extremely sad news, for Billy had developed very close feelings for Semyase over the years, and of course he felt responsible for her accident because of Jacobus. He had been trying so hard to control all of the egos and the jealousy and the petty arguments that were continually going on among the Figu members. Moreover, He was a father, a contactee, and a prophet. But many of the Figu members were very headstrong and difficult to deal with. The stress on Billy was becoming too much for him, and it showed in his health. He was losing too much sleep and letting himself get run down. Was it time to stop the contacts altogether? The Pleiadian Council had been watching Billy very closely and could see that he was having a lot of leadership problems with the Figu members that were affecting the mission. Now that Semyase would not be able to continue the contacts, they were very concerned that it would be time to stop them altogether. They instructed Quetzal to have another meeting with Billy to explain the situation. It was very difficult for Quetzal to tell Billy that it might be time to stop the contacts. He had grown very fond of Billy and could tell just by looking at him that Billy was terribly upset. Not only would there be the cessation of this Pleiadian mission, but Quetzal would actually miss Billy. The Pleiadians had hoped that through educating Billy and making their presence known to the public through the photos he had taken, that they could help change Earth's future to a more peaceful and happy outcome. The dark times that would come around the turn of this century could be avoided if mass consciousness could be affected in the right way, and they were putting their hopes in Billy. Now it seemed that most of their work may have been for nothing. For Billy had not made his book called The Contact Notes easily accessible to the public. In addition, he had not followed through with his promise to give more public speeches as he had been asked to do, and several of the Figu members had become such a problem that they were also jeopardizing the mission. Things were not working out as well as they'd hoped, and now with Semyase out of the picture, the prospects for a bright future were not looking so good. As Quetzal continued to explain the Pleiadians' viewpoint, Billy agreed that certain members of the Figu, who were angry and jealous, would have to go. Quetzal would help Billy by monitoring the thoughts of these individuals in order to help him better understand them. Billy agreed to cut back on his work and take care of his health, delegate more responsibility to others. The contacts would continue for a while with Quetzal until they found out if Semyase could return. For the next couple of months, things seemed to be going well. Quetzal had made suggestions to Billy to ask certain people to leave the Figu and to change Billy's own work habits. The Pleiadian Council went along with Quetzal and left the decision up to him for a while, but they made it clear that if the Figu could not get their egos in line, all contacts must stop. For Billy and Quetzal, their relationship was developing nicely. It had developed into a good friendship, and Quetzal had taken time for several contacts which were very beneficial to Billy. Quetzal's easygoing manner and rather obvious intellect were proving to be great stimulators for Billy. But everything was not going well. The council back on Era had been monitoring the thoughts of the Figu members and found that instead of getting better, the attitudes were deteriorating and becoming even more harmful to the success of the Pleiadian mission. Billy seemed to be lacking in leadership abilities, and some of the people in the Figu had become so emotionally unbalanced that they served no purpose to the mission and were becoming destructive to themselves. It was on Monday, April 10th, 1978, called Empowering Reincarnation, when Quetzal informed Billy that the group was failing and future contacts would be limited to telepathic transmissions to Billy only. The Figu was on probation. Empowering is the throat chakra, and reincarnation also implies death. If the Figu members could not get their thinking straightened out, the group would have to be dissolved altogether and could no longer take part in the Pleiadian mission. Reunited with Semyase. It was exactly 40 days later, on May 20th, 1978, balancing reincarnation, that Billy felt the familiar presence of Semyase in his thoughts. Recall that she fell down on balancing dog, a white glyph, and here she was on balancing reincarnation, meeting Billy again for the first time since her fall. In fact, it had been exactly 156 days, because she fell on Keen 110 out of 260, so that means 150 days transpired, and then Keen 6 is balancing reincarnation, 156 days later. She and Pleiadian, her sister, were coming to see Billy. She was feeling better and wanted to see her old friend whom she missed so much. Billy quickly dropped what he was doing and raced out of the house to meet her. She led him to a remote spot not too far away and picked him up in her little ship. Billy was flushed with excitement as he saw her again. He had missed her so much. But here she was, just as before, with that pretty face and long red hair and that gentle manner that always made Billy feel so comfortable and loved. She was back and seemed healthy. He was hoping she would never leave. Semyase gave Billy a hug that seemed to last forever. It had been 5 months since they'd seen each other, and they were making up for it all at once. Billy suddenly noticed Pleiadian was there also and broke up the hug to say hello to her. He had not seen her for over a year, when he taught her how to ride his moped one afternoon in the forest. The three of them were happy and smiling and remarking how nice it was to see each other again. It was a great reunion for all of them. Semyase had been recuperating the whole time and seemed very healthy. The Soneans and their technology had seemed to work wonders. Her brain was repairing itself, and while she had some trouble remembering some things, she seemed totally herself. Life at home had been very calming for her and had given her plenty of time to relax and catch up on life on Era. She had spoken with the Pleiadian Council about Billy and the group before coming here, of course, and they were concerned about her ability to return to work. Unfortunately, she had to inform them that she could not be able to continue the contacts. The doctors had informed her that her brain was healing a little slower than anticipated, and she should continue to take it easy. Billy was very sad to hear this because he was hoping that she would be able to resume their contacts. Although he was enjoying his friendship with Quetzal, he certainly missed Semyase. Once she told the council that she could not continue, they had consulted with Quetzal about the progress of the Figu members and were told that things were still fragmenting. Several of them were openly trying to cause Billy trouble. They were making up lies about Billy to hurt his feelings and causing other problems that rendered the group dysfunctional. None of the Figu members were taking the spiritual teaching seriously and were questioning Billy's authority so much that he had no control. It had been decided that the group was on probation for 7 months. They would have to take their commitment of personal development more seriously and work to help Billy, or they would no longer be able to live on the farm and help with the mission. Quetzal would continue having contacts with Billy But Billy's contact notes would no longer be available to the members at all. Billy had to agree things were beyond his control. He was very worried about the state of affairs. He had tried his best to help everyone get along, but there were some pretty headstrong people in the Figu, and the seriousness of the pressure that was on them to help with the contacts and to be responsible for getting the Pleiadian information out to the world was proving to be too much for some of them. They had developed elitist attitudes, believing they were better than other people, and fought amongst themselves like cats and dogs. The rivalry over self-importance was bringing the whole group down, and the Pleiadians would have no more of it. Their mission to help the people of Earth through the understanding of higher consciousness could not be accomplished by this kind of thinking. Breakdown. The following weeks were very difficult for Billy. He couldn't sleep or get any work done. There was so much pressure on him from everyone around him that he was unable to think straight. He was beginning to feel like he had failed planet Earth and the Pleiadians. In his mind, he was responsible for the future of Earth, and he was letting everyone down. He had tried so hard to perform his mission as well as he could, but things were out of control. He did not possess the leadership qualities to control the Figu, and the pressure he felt to keep the contacts going was too much for him. It was on Monday, the 17th of July, called Understanding Seed. While on his way to meet Quetzal for a contact, that Billy's health completely failed. He was in the forest waiting for Quetzal to meet him when suddenly he collapsed and fell to the ground unconscious. He was having an acute nervous breakdown. He blanked out and fell and lay flat on his back in a small gully near the contact site. Instantly, the alert mind of Quetzal picked up on Billy's condition and raced to his aid. He was not surprised that Billy had collapsed. He had been warning him for weeks to protect his health. Now it was too late. Quetzal sensed that Billy was suffering a breakdown of his nervous system and quickly brought him up to the ship. Billy was still unconscious as Quetzal quickly examined his body and internal organs. He was right. Billy was having a nervous breakdown caused by exhaustion and anxiety. Fortunately, Pleiadian science is far beyond our current understanding, and Quetzal immediately knew what to do. As Billy slowly regained consciousness, he looked up at Quetzal, who quickly told him not to speak yet. Just relax, and he would be okay in a moment. Quetzal was passing a small device over Billy's body, which was reviving the nervous system and restoring his health. Within minutes, Billy seemed much better and was able to sit up and talk. He almost felt normal. The device had somehow repaired the nervous system and balanced the cells of his body, relieving his stress, and pumped energy through his system. Billy felt pretty good and wasn't even aware that he had collapsed until it was explained to him. Quetzal informed him that he had suffered a nervous breakdown brought on by the problems of the Figu members. It would take 12 to 14 days for the nerves to completely regenerate themselves, but he would be okay. Quetzal moved his ship just above the center and materialized Billy's body into his own bed so he could relax and get some rest. The highly developed consciousness of Quetzal caused Billy to fall into a deep sleep without worry and anxiety, so his old friend could heal himself. Quetzal was very concerned because this was a strong indication that Billy could no longer control himself or the Figu. The contacts end. Once Billy's health had returned, there were only a couple of more contacts with Quetzal, and then on Thursday, October 19th, 1978, the final meeting took place. That date was called Pairing Obsidian Mirror Knife. So you may picture the obsidian knife separating the pair. It may be of some interest to you that the initial contact between Semyase and Billy on January 28, 1975 was called Reflecting Obsidian Mirror Knife in 98. There had been 115 contacts so far, and Billy had accumulated over 1,800 pages of contact notes for the people of Earth to learn from. He had done his best, but it had not been good enough. He had to agree with the council that it was time to end the physical contacts. He no longer had the strength to deal with all of the problems, and he had not turned out to be a strong enough leader to keep the Figu in line. Billy left Quetzal's ship that day for the last time. There would be telepathic communications in the future in order to see how he was, but the physical contacts for the purpose of education for the people of Earth were over. A new vision for Earth. My summer with Billy had opened my mind up to many new things. But most importantly, it had made me aware of how we need to work together to create our own future. It is one thing for the Pleiadians to come to Earth to help us out, but this is our planet, and we have to take care of things for ourselves. I hope from what I have written in this book you can find in yourself the need to help make the world a better place. We need to do something with all of this information. We need to study it and find ways to make it useful for our people on our planet. Peace is only going to come to Earth when we address the problems of our lives with spiritual understanding. It is time for us all to discover the spiritual bonding that connects all living things together with cosmic creation consciousness. Once you can feel this bonding, you are in touch with the power that can change anything. Imagine if, just for 1 hour, everyone on Earth bonded together and allowed their spirits to connect in love and understanding. In just that 1 hour, we could solve all of the problems on Earth. Coming together. Nothing is more important than to educate the minds of Earth humans about the material and the spiritual realm. People must learn to understand that they are more than just a physical body. We must help everyone get in touch with their spiritual self and feel the unconditional love of cosmic creation consciousness. This is the way we will break down the material forces of hatred, prejudice, and other forms of illogical thinking that put so much stress on our culture. For us to make any progress in our quest toward a more enlightened planet, we must educate and wake up everyone to the spiritual side of life. Only then can we accomplish the transition into this new age of Aquarius with a level of higher vibration and consciousness. The Pleiadians and other extraterrestrial races see everyone in a physical body as being spiritual beings. They listen, observe, and study as spiritual beings. If we are to take our place in the family of man throughout the universe, becoming universal, galactic, intergalactic humans, we have to clean up our thoughts and create a collective consciousness here on Earth of peace and love and forgiveness. If we continue to project thoughts of anger, jealousy, prejudice, hatred, and all of the other negative feelings, it will not be possible for us to communicate with the races of higher consciousness, such as the Pleiadians, or leave our solar system. The Lightworkers of the New Age. Earth is currently a planet of over 170 nations with as many different ideologies, philosophies, and social customs. The leaders of the New Age movement must find ways to bring these many different concepts and theories together and find the common denominator that will allow us to live together in peace. To begin with, we must learn to understand each other with an open mind that allows acceptance of other viewpoints without anger and value judgments. This is a time of education and growing up for Earth humans. If you find yourself able to share knowledge with others who are on a quest for enlightenment, here are some suggestions that may help you communicate and be of help to others. A vision for Earth. A poem. Blue, blue earth, your light is bright, shining through the Milky Way tonight, sending out a beam of love and riding high on a consciousness of living in the cosmic creation way, harmony with nature in every way, a world of peace where everyone can win a dream and love someone. And now you've moved through time and space to join the intergalactic human race. Your life is rich, your spirit bright, and now forever you're a being of light. Step 1. Find your own truth. Don't ask people to blindly accept your ideas or your information. Remind them that one man's knowledge is just another man's information, and we all must find our own truth. 2. Promote integrity. Acceptance of new ideas comes from respect for those who offer them. If you project integrity and sincerity instead of ego or vanity, you will not only be of more help to others, you will feel better about yourself. 3. Role model. In the New Age, our heroes need to be of a different type than movie stars, athletes, musicians, and war heroes. We need role modeling that projects wisdom, integrity, intelligence, and unconditional love. Let's use our schools, movies, books, and television to create heroes who are rich in values and honesty. Step 4. Project equality of all beings and unconditional, universal love. Not enough can be said about the need for unconditional, universal love in our thinking. Learn to see each other as spiritual beings on a path of growth and education, and sense the spiritual bonding that ties us all together. Step 5. Connect with Gaia. We must consider this planet we live on as an equal part of cosmic creation consciousness. She is a living entity that agreed to take on the spiritual and physical inhabitation of this planet for billions of years to give life to trillions upon trillions of beings in order for them to evolve their souls and contribute to cosmic creation consciousness. How about spending an afternoon watching birds, or sit down by a stream and talk to it? There are life forces in nature that are asking to communicate with you. You can call them elementals or sprites or brownies or whatever you wish. These beings of nature will let themselves be seen by humans if you are in the right state of mind. Step 6. Study spirit. Study about spiritual consciousness and share it with others. Go to conferences, expos, and fill your mind with an inventory of information that can help you discover yourself, and in so doing, discover everyone else too. Through meditation, humanity will decrease the cries of the shadow ego and develop more balanced thinking and feeling to make their lives more enjoyable. Step 7. Help educate the young. At any age, we are nothing more than the accumulated experiences that have gotten us to where we are right now. And the experiences of our youth are the formative, foundational years that create our adulthood and old age. Step 8. Be creative. Creative thinking helps keep you young and alert. It stimulates you to use both sides of your brain and makes your soul happy. The personal satisfaction that comes along with being creative is a doorway to sharing your love with others. Step 9. Be prepared to speak for the earth and for humanity. As we think, our thoughts move out into space. If millions of us combine our thoughts, we can communicate with other worlds and develop relationships with more advanced beings. In this way, we can create an alliance for Earth with peaceful races from other planets and/or dimensions. Earth humans are being contacted by the Pleiadians, the Greys, the Reptilians, and several other extraterrestrial races. Millions of people all over the world have seen their ships and have had contacts of various kinds. It is no longer a question of whether or not ETs are real, but a question of whether or not you know about them or have even seen them yourselves. I feel that nothing is more important right now than educating everyone about their spiritual selves and creating a large mass of humanity who can come together on the higher planes of consciousness and communicate with the Pleiadians and other peaceful ETs. The vibrational consciousness of Earth humans is being monitored all the time by many extraterrestrial races. When they begin to detect the growing mass of people coming together spiritually with unconditional love, unconditional trust, and unconditional forgiveness, I believe we will have first contact. Peace on Earth. Imagine if we formed a group of spiritually minded people who understand and live by the principles of unconditional love. And they went around visiting different places and cities and countries in the world. They could go to each major city and put on a spiritual education expo, where everyone shares and listens to one another and talks about our different customs, philosophies, and ideologies. By sharing, we can find the common ground between us and blend our heritages together in a common goal for our planet. We can carry the messages of spiritual bonding all around the world. It's time to educate, not legislate. I want to express my thanks to Billy and his family for extending me their courtesy and friendship during my 3 trips to their home in Switzerland. Even though they have endured so many hardships and difficult times over the years, they still had time to make me feel welcome. Many thanks to Silvano, Bruni, Billy, Popey, and the other members of the Figu for providing me with the spiritual nourishment to help me along the path to my own self-discovery. I hope that the information I have made available here in this book has in some way contributed to the ongoing efforts of the Pleiadian mission and is of some benefit to humankind. Salom, Randolph Winters. And this is Crispy signing off too, thanking you again for your ears and your hearts. In Lak'esh Alak-in, which is a Pleiadian saying that means, I am another you, you are another me, we are one. One holy hologram, one divine spark, one sacred fractal of cosmic creation consciousness, the Hunab. Namaste.